The U.S. helicopter that went down over the Strait is a stark reminder that every second Trump's disastrous war continues is another second that our troops remain in harm's way.
There is a defensive strike that has been taken. It is proportional and limited. The White House and the Pentagon have announced and said it's against unjustified Iranian aggression. It's targeted strikes to the radar, missile, and command and control sites.
The United States now engaged in a tit-for-tat with Iran over its latest takedown of an American aircraft, an Apache helicopter. Let's bring in our panel. Josh Kraushaar is a Fox News radio political analyst. Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics co-founder and president. And Annie Linsky, White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal. So CENTCOM has launched retaliatory strikes against Iran. They posted this on X. U.S. Central Command forces began launching self-defense strikes against Iran at 5 p.m. Eastern time today at the Commander-in-Chief's direction in response to yesterday's downing of a U.S. Army Apache helicopter. The mission is proportional response to an unjustified Iranian aggression. Tom, a lot of military analysts that we talk to say that's exactly the problem. It's a proportional response, that the U.S. should be going in there and really punching them hard.
Right, and we're in this sort of holding pattern. Trump's trying to, I think, keep space and create space and allow some deal to get done. He said it's going to happen in 2 to 3 days, but it doesn't seem to be happening. It seems that the Iranians don't really have any interest. They're not necessarily negotiating in good faith. And, you know, J.D. Vance was saying, look, it's not a quagmire. He's out defending this, saying, of course, it's going to be wrapped up before the midterms. Well, you know, the clock is ticking domestically, politically, and there doesn't seem to be a deal that's on the horizon. You
know, Iran dragged out negotiations for the JCPOA for 2 years. Andy, you talked to the president a little bit earlier today. You wrote an article with it, about it with Jared Molson and Shelby Holliday. You wrote in part, quote, Trump has been reluctant to return to a broad bombing campaign, though he previously told aides he would consider restarting the full-scale war with Iran if American service members are killed by Iran. He sought to play down the helicopter incident, saying that it wasn't a big deal and stressing that the pilot is fine. But they tried to kill them.
Yes, that's right. You know, when I spoke to the president earlier this morning, he very much is still in this kind of deal-making mode and wanting to say, look, this isn't going to be a moment that will disrupt this very carefully negotiated ceasefire. But the reality is the reality. And later, you know, hours after I talked to him and he said it wasn't a big deal, you know, bombs are exploding over Iran tonight.
Right. So we are now 9 weeks into a 2-week ceasefire, right? The Strait of Hormuz was supposed to be open a long time ago, and it's not. Where are we?
Well, look, Trump is inviting comparisons to Barack Obama with his desperation for a deal while Iran is not making any meaningful concessions about their nuclear program, about their ballistic missiles. They fired against Israel over the weekend. They are attacking a U.S. helicopter, and now Trump is calling for, the CENTCOM called for a proportional response, not a dominant response. And I think that the Iranians see the weakness. They see how politically vulnerable Trump is. He wants to make a deal. He's worried about the state of the economy, gas prices in particular. But Iran sniffs out weakness, and they're trying to test the U.S., and they're getting a lot of vulnerability.
Yeah, I mean, a former military commander I talked to today said the fact that Iran took down an Apache helicopter shows that they believe that this president is not being forceful with them anymore. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I think he's in a tough spot, and he's, you know, wars are easy to get into and tough to get out of. And he's been, as I said, he's been trying to do this deal, but there just doesn't seem to be anybody on the other side of the table that's willing to put something down and sign on the dotted line.
All right, let's leave foreign policy behind. I want to talk to you about the Southern Poverty Law Center hearing. Of course, charges against them for funding the very hate that they claim to fight. It's like a volunteer fire department would pay an arsonist to light fires so that the fire department would have something to do. Interim CEO Brian Fair faced withering questions over charges that they're funding the very hate that they fight, and the criteria that they use to list groups like Moms for Liberty, American College of Pediatricians, Focus on the Family, Turning Point USA as hate or extremist groups. I mean, what are you thinking here, Andy?
Look, I mean, when you take a step back, this organization has been a storied civil rights organization. And for years, back in the day, it has been an arbiter of organizations that are, quote unquote, good and bad. It has labeled hate groups. And these labels have really mattered. They have determined corporate donations, whether something is sort of socially acceptable to support or not. And so to have a hearing, you know, that storied moment has tarnished over the years, but this is certainly a low point for them, to have their leader go out there and really be unable to push back on the very reasonable questions that they were being asked.
Chip Roy went at it with Brian Fair over Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, which has been listed as a hate or extremist group. Watch this exchange.
With respect to Charlie Kirk, have you all taken any position since Charlie Kirk
Mr. Roy, we unequivocally condemned the murder of Charlie Kirk.
What about the listing of Charlie Kirk?
It is our position that TPUSA expresses views and vilifies other people based on immutable characteristics, exposing them to our listing.
But a lot of people would say the two things are not mutually exclusive. You can't say, well, I think that the assassination of Charlie Kirk is terrible, but we told everybody in the world that it's a hate organization.
Well, this is nothing new from the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's been almost a decade where publications like The New Yorker exposed the fact that they were characterizing mainstream civil rights figures as hate figures. And the list is very long. Charlie Kirk is just one of many. And The New Yorker called, this back in 2019, they said the Law Center had a way of turning idealists into cynics. They were using sort of their civil rights mantra to really profit from that. And now they're under investigation by the DOJ, which is what the hearing was about taking in money that ended up going to these hate groups and trying to get informants.
There was one really interesting moment elicited by Brandon Gill of Texas when he asked Brian Fair about Graham Plattner's Totenkopf tattoo. Watch this.
Do you think that somebody who has a Nazi tattoo on their chest should serve in the United States Senate?
I wouldn't vote for that person.
I certainly wouldn't either. Do you think that this should disqualify him politically from serving in the Senate?
Again, I'm not sure where the line of questions is going. The SPLC, if you're asking me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If you're asking me if the SPLC opposes Nazis and Nazi symbols, the answer is yes.
I mean, he's embattled, but they are supposed to be the arbiters of hate and extremism. What did you make of that, Tom?
I thought it was one of the worst hearings I've ever seen performance by this president. He was unable to defend, and he just got roughed up by Republican after Republican. Brandon Gill, Jim Jordan, Chip Roy. I mean, it's just one after another, and he had no answers.
Quick 10 seconds.
If you can't say Nazis are bad, then I think that's something we can all agree on, right?
But do you think anybody in Maine was paying attention?
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so.
Thanks, folks, for being with us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.